Kamala Harris is a terrible candidate. I don't like her. I don't think she was a good border czar, which she absolutely is. The term is colloquial. I'm going to go through the definition, historical uses of it, people that embrace it, didn't embrace it, and kind of what...
Did people use the term border czar before Kamala Harris? Was Kamala Harris described as the border czar? I don't care. Please just talk about immigration policy. Because I think there's like... Please have a substantive policy debate.
I don't understand how you're confused. The reason why I would kind of push back on the idea of like border czar is because she was more tasked with the diplomatic side of things. Upon researching this, there was someone, and so sorry, I'm trying to remember everyone's names. Admiral Gibbs referenced this. There was someone that...
Roberta Jacobson.
Okay.
Yes, she was like way more in what historically would be considered a border czar. Like they had a lot of leeway, a lot of power, specifically at the border to do things at the border. Whereas what Joe Biden, even in the transcript of what Tyler said, again, like, sorry, remember Portland said, yeah, it's mostly diplomatic stuff. And the rest of the context of that...
Oh, there's more. I can keep reading. He keeps giving out specifics that she's going on further in the speech. This is what the problem is, right? You're being dishonest. She's clearly been put in charge by Biden to take over for Robertson, or Jacobson, I mean.
That doesn't preclude that the way that she was doing that was through negotiations with other countries to address like the push factors. Work will not be easy. It's important. Harris's task was overseeing diplomatic effort. This like if he literally just read like the next paragraph, sounds like it's right. It like directly contradicts him. Like unless there's an asylum ban active, like there is now, then the laws on the books require that regardless of whether someone comes through a port of entry, they have to be granted asylum. The wall doesn't do anything.
That they could sneak some baddies in. I don't know why that's a revolutionary idea either. And the idea
that what would the game plan there be? They're gonna sneak in illegal immigrants, and then what are they gonna spy on? Are they hoping that this illegal immigrant somehow like climbs the ranks and becomes like a U.S. military general? Like what's the? Like there's probably something I'm not thinking of that they could actually do. I'm not opposed to the idea that there are Chinese spies coming in.
Well, see, it's not though. Let me tell you why. We've had an 85% decrease in illegal immigration here in Texas when we built the wall, despite the Biden-Harris administration, which seems their only policy is to tear down.
Another thing you have to be careful about. So Title 42 gave us a lot of good data on this. Doing things like the asylum ban don't actually decrease illegal immigration that much. What it increases is the number of known gotaways, both the immigration notes.
Okay. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WhickTV, a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Today, we're going to be debating, right, on Kamala Harris in the border. A lot has been said about whether or not she was, quote unquote, the border czar in charge of immigration, all these things. We're going to talk about what she has done as vice president, what she advocated for, what she advocates for now, and whether or not that will be good for immigration, and just talk about Kamala Harris and her positions in general. But we're going to start with the border. We got quite the lineup. We're waiting on one more person. When they get here, we'll just slot them in. But you'll notice that we have the banned man himself. He just recently got unbanned from Twitch. Okay, Saul is back with us. And so we're going to give him the mic first.
I'm 1v2 and give me the last word here, okay?
Give you the last word?
Give me the last word. Yeah, I'm the only one on my side. I didn't know what they were going to say.
So far, I mean, look, Portland's on your side too.
Also not too knowledgeable what happened in relation to the last presidential election
there in Washington.
Okay. Well.
Hopefully he's okay. I haven't heard from him today, so we'll see. Okay, well, with that, let's get started. And I guess if you want to go last, I can make you go last. Gibbs, do you mind going first, and then we'll...
Yeah, I'll go first, sure. So the Democrats have been wholesale gaslighting the United States for too long. First, they told us Biden didn't have dementia and amnesia. Now, after calling Kamala Harris the border czar for 3.5 years almost, and having her take over for the woman that was originally titled the border czar before, take over the responsibilities, sending her down to the southern areas to see about this migration crisis and all these things.
They were like, it's a really good
Portland, you're hot micing. You're hot micing. I don't know who that is.
Like, why? And so she said, my brother...
Okay,
what the hell?
Sorry about that.
Dude.
Yeah,
he can DM me when he's better.
Yeah, so...
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So basically, for 3.5 years, she's been called the border czar. She's replaced the border czar. The left leading media is the one who's called her the border czar for all this time. This is our thing. Like, it's not even like an insult. We've had czars of all sorts of shit, and Republicans and Democrats, but she's just done such an abysmal job. Even if we wanted to rename her the migration czar instead, which is why she was supposed to go find the root causes or some shit like that. Listen, she failed at that. There's nothing she's ever actually accomplished as this border czar person.
This panel got off to holy shit, Okada boy. Is that the real Okada boy? This panel got off to a slow start. Welcome to the stream, Okada boy. What's up? Okada boy, wait, you didn't answer my fucking question, dude. Hold on. I need to know. I need your advice, okay? I want to make a video. I have like a few notes written down about Trump's contradictory economic policy. I'm gonna rip you off, okay? I'm gonna do one of your monologue videos. I don't see why that if Trump restricted capital inflows from China, I don't see why that wouldn't increase your trade deficit, right? Maybe this is just my like high school macro econ brain working. Okay, so like there's probably shit that I don't know, but like I was taught any decrease in capital account is just going to go to current account, so it would increase the current account deficit. Okay, anyway, thanks for being here, Econo Boy. What the hell? I love your stuff, man.
It's an utter failure. That's why they want to separate the name from it. But it's another example of just outright dishonesty and gaslighting by the Dems, trying to convince y'all of something that y'all know is true. Just like when they tell you inflation, is not that bad, jobs are record high, even though everybody's got to work for things. It's just dishonesty. It's hypocrisy. It's disgusting. And I think the American people are sick of it, hopefully.
Okay, well, thanks for being here. Looking forward to the debate. Average debate enjoyer. Tyler, please.
All right, well, I'd like to start this out here for you guys by just kind of telling you a story.
Not sure my dude. Trade accounting isn't my thing right now. Okay, you're good, but I'm going to make the video to assume I'm right, and I'm sure a commenter will point out if I'm wrong. But thank you.
Walking around.
Good question for ChatGPT. I did ask I asked Perplexity, which at least like has sources. Perplexity said I was right, I think. If Trump enacts a policy limiting Chinese ownership of U.S. firms, it would likely decrease the capital account surplus, and assuming trade volumes stay constant, this would lead to an increase in the current account deficit to balance the payments, because balance of payments has to equal 0 in our long run, at least. Yeah. Talking out.
My parents took me to Oakland as a baby, and we went to a civil rights protest, and I was in a stroller with no straps on it, and the adults were really caught up in the protest. At some point, I fell out of the stroller, and they just kept marching. Well, eventually, they doubled back, and they saw I was really upset at that point. My mom, when she tells the story about how I'm fussing, she asked me, "Baby, what do you want? What do you need?" And I looked at her and said, "Freedom." Kamala Harris is a terrible candidate. I don't like her. I don't think she was a good border czar, which she absolutely is. The term is colloquial. I'm going to go through the definition, historical uses of it, people that embrace it, didn't embrace it, and kind of what...
Did people use the term border czar before Kamala Harris? The only there's no such thing as a border czar. This is just the left-wing media gaslighting me. But like, didn't Biden just say Kamala Harris was in charge of border policy? And then I think there was some media company that called her the border czar, like colloquially. But like, I don't know. Again, like I don't know. From all the immigration research I've done, doesn't even seem like the president can do much. And what the president has done is probably illegal. From my knowledge, the executive order, the asylum ban that Biden did, it's probably illegal. Like I don't. It's just that no one wants to challenge him on it because no one likes immigrants, but. Unlawful border crossings have fallen in recent months. Oh, this also, by the way, the border crossings have fallen to about what they were before Trump left. This is the preliminary data, though. Since the new data has come out, it is still higher than when Trump left office. But I mean, they have fallen back to what they were. And then there's this really good article. If you take into account the fact that our border security has gotten a lot better in the past. Like a few decades, and you include the number of people who got away. Are you more for PPG in this country? Are you for more PPGs in this country? Not quite. I don't know. Well, more people pissing on the floor, and that's just that's competition for my Twitch stream, because I'm not willing to piss on the floor for subs like he is. So probably not. So no, racist. Oh, you're saying because he's Mexican. I always forget he's Mexican. He acts so white. So I'm for greatly making it a lot easier to come in here legally. I think immigration is mostly good. I mean, there's some small trade-off of wages, but it's probably a positive trade-off. He's proud he turned out to be white, lol.
What she actually was tasked with by Joe Biden.
Okay, thank you for being here. Looking forward to it. You're not going to go last, but you're going to go second to last because I'm going to give Portland as much time as he needs to make sure that he's not hot micing and things like that.
I mean,
So,
I'm cool with going here. So I read through Tyler's
document. It was really enlightening on what the border czar situation is, like the naming convention behind it. It seems like it's actually a neutral term, kind of, over the course of history, but we'll get into that. After reading some articles, I'm not actually
sure. Are you
sure
for a primary? What do you
should
mean?
call her a border czar, but we can get into that. It's not really the biggest issue on this topic here.
I'm not too sure about Kamala. Well, listen. The thing is, I have Trump derangement syndrome. I'm relatively agnostic about like who the Democratic candidate should be. I think Kamala has the claims to the funds, right? Although it could be converted into a PAC if it wasn't Kamala. The support for Kamala Harris is a lot better than I expected. We've seen her go up like a ton in the polls. Like, what if Pete is stronger? I don't know. People are already saying it's a coup. So like maybe it wouldn't be a big deal to go with Pete. There are probably things with the open convention that are not good, but like I do really like Pete. Listen, I wanted Roy Cooper as VP, okay, because I'm from North Carolina. I wanted Roy Cooper, but holy shit, Pete versus fucking JD Vance would be so funny, dude, with how charismatic and how well Pete controls the conversation compared to JD Vance. American hero JD Vance, as Econo Boys has rightly pointed out, JD Vance is an American hero. It would be so funny to watch, dude.
Topic more has to do with what her what's the word I'm looking for?
Pete and Shapiro
Right,
ticket. Was it Shapiro or who had the sexual assault allegation that just came out against him? Shapiro, sexual assault, sexual harass. Shapiro in the IDF base. Shapiro, okay. I think we should run a Harris Shapiro ticket. Sam Harris and Ben Shapiro. That'd be the best ticket, dude.
And so what she was tasked with was very specifically working with the Northern Triangle in Central America, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, I think. And over the course of the time that she's been in charge as the quote-unquote border czar, or whatever we want to call her, those three countries have seen a dramatic shift in the amount of people coming over. I think from Guatemala, it's down 50%, from Honduras, 19%, and the other one, I can't remember the number off the top of my head. We can get into it. It seems like, in terms of what she was specifically tasked with doing and what she was given the powers to do, it seems like she actually did a pretty decent job. In terms of anything else to do with the border, we're going to have to go into policy regarding Joe Biden, the Republicans, the Democrats, and everybody else, not just Kamala Harris per se. So we can get into that, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
You wrote an essay?
Okay, excellent. Now,
another thing, I don't know how much Kamala has been involved in this. I think Biden negotiated with Venezuela and geez, I can't speak, to have elections. Now, obviously we saw how they turned out. But he at least tried to negotiate with Venezuela for sanctions relief in exchange for the free and fair presidential elections that turned out were probably not so free and fair. And then also, they did actually end up getting $1.5 billion to invest in their smart border technology from Mexico. They did actually make They did actually make Mexico pay for the wall. Unlike what Trump did, which was tariffs.
hopefully he's ready. Hopefully he's set. We're going to try. Okay, Portland, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys, but...
Yes,
we can hear you.
Okay, we can hear you too. Go ahead, give us your opening thoughts.
Opening thoughts, I think that it's both disingenuous and deeply misleading to refer to Kamala Harris as the border czar, and it's nothing more than a Republican talking point to take a very complex issue, condense it down into a very simple soundbite, and spoon feed it to people that aren't going to critically engage with it. That's pretty much all I have for opening thoughts. Look forward to chatting with everyone except for Gibbs.
I think Roy Cooper gave a really good answer on Palestine as well, although I guess Shapiro, if he wrote an essay, he probably wrote more about it. It's wonderful to live in a democracy where people's voices can be heard and they're unafraid to protest. In many countries, that's not the case. That being said, the war is devastating. We're seeing innocent civilians being killed. I think Biden knows that. There needs to be a two-state solution here. We need Arab countries to come together. Pro-Hamas people supporting Waltz for some reason. I don't know. Listen, I don't know anything. I don't know anything about anyone. Okay, I wanted my man Roy Cooper, and Roy Cooper withdrew. He's gone, and I don't care anymore. Kill the astronaut would also be badass, true. Although, I don't know. One of the things for Roy Cooper is that he doesn't risk losing a Democratic incumbency, whereas most of the other people do. Shapiro doesn't. He has a Democratic lieutenant governor too, so the Democratic lieutenant governor would just become governor. But Roy Cooper could at least finish his term. Josh Shapiro can't. He'd have to resign. And also, the thing I always mention, Shapiro had already won his election, right? Or who am I? Or is it Beshear? Wait, which one's Kentucky? Shapiro's Pennsylvania. Never mind. I don't know. I don't remember Shapiro. Beshear is Kentucky, right?
Okay, well, wonderful.
He already won his election, whereas North Carolina has their presidential election at the same time as the governor election.
Love the energy. Let's see.
It would have down balloted a Democratic governor, which would have been nice. We'll probably still have a Democratic governor. We might even go blue. I'm manifesting it, okay? Okay. What are the highlights about Cooper? Okay. The best thing Cooper has done is veto bills because North Carolina has like a super majority legislator, right? A Republican legislator. So he's the Democratic governor. Like the best thing you can do is like veto bills and try to negotiate with the Republican legislators for better stuff. Okay. So one big thing he just did, first of all, he vetoed a lot of like anti-abortion bills. But also he just passed some legislation to forgive a lot of medical debt, and he also helped expand access to Medicare, which the Republicans were initially hesitant to do. But this program has the potential to raise up to $4 billion in existing medical debt across the state, according to Cooper. The best thing he's done is like veto bills that are anti-abortion, and also he's done things to expand access to Medicare and to forgive medical debt, like he just did. That's what's good about Cooper. He's North Carolina is a red-ish state where it's really fucking gerrymandered. We're like 48% Democrats, 50% Republicans. But since we're so gerrymandered, we're really red. But he's never lost an election in our red state. Yeah.
See how it goes. So I guess we can just open it up to the floor. Go ahead, gang. The floor is yours.
Is Econo Boy still here? Because I'm tired of these fucking Texans pretending like they're battleground state. Okay, NC is the real battleground state. We may not have as many electoral votes, but at least we'll actually go blue. Watch. It'll happen. I'm manifesting it.
I was saying I wrote a nice document up to kind of get all my notes and ideas all in one area for everyone to kind of review if they want to, so we can all be on the same page. I just took the history of the czars. There's a couple citations in there if you want to check them out. But essentially what they say is a czar is just an unofficial title, a nickname, a silly name that was given to make the point person as a president delegates a certain responsibility to. It just gave it a title, unofficial title. That's all it is. It's not an actual position. There's no swearing in or anything required. Sometimes they become official positions in different administrations and whatnot, but generally it's just kind of a brand that the media and both sides do. So in terms of, I guess I'll go with Portland here because this is our first debate together, even though we chat a lot. There was it was a bill. I don't know the actual term for it, but there was a bill condemning Kamala Harris for her bad actions, specifically using the term border czar, and Democrats were voting for it. A small handful of them, but still bipartisan. There, on top of that, you can go and look at almost every single media outlet, Axios, ABC, CNN, even MSNBC said it multiple times, called her the border czar. It's just a colloquial term. It doesn't have a set responsibilities to it. Where those responsibilities come from was what specifically Joe Biden delegated to her. And also in this links document I have here, I have the transcript of when Joe Biden delegated these powers to her. He gave her many more responsibilities than just the Northern Triangle, which he did give her those. But he also said that she was already working with Mexico, in talks with Mexico, and dealing with the surge currently at the southern border. So Joe Biden's own words, when he said, when she speaks for me, making her the point person, delegated the actual border to her as well.
And even in the press release and the transcript that you were so kind as to provide us all in the group chat, it's pretty clear, specifically multiple times cited as a diplomatic responsibility to engage with the people, the governing bodies of Mexico and the countries in the Northern Triangle to negotiate ways that the U.S. could be party to improving conditions locally so as to prevent and like stem the need for migration in the first place. She wasn't delegated any specific powers, any governing authority over the border itself. There was no level of like direct involvement that was ever called out or intended to be like outlined in any of those press releases or conversations. It was specifically diplomatic duties that she was tasked with. And I think that it's really about what people want you to think when they use the term border czar versus what her actual responsibilities were on the ground and in application. And I think that those two thought processes are pretty far apart in terms of like her actual role on the ground, which was extremely minimal, if there was any at all, versus what people in the Republican contingent intend to convey when they refer to her as the border czar. They want to thrust the responsibility for the condition of the border directly onto her.
Yeah, I just want to like touch on this. So in some aspects, I agree with Tyler. I understand that it's not actually, it doesn't mean anything actually. It just means someone is in charge of a particular thing, and that's it. There's no other real qualifiers to it. The reason why I would kind of push back on the idea of like border czar is because she was more tasked with the diplomatic side of things. Upon researching this, there was someone, and so sorry, I'm trying to remember everyone's names. Admiral Gibbs referenced this. There was someone that
Roberta Jacobson.
Okay.
Yes.
She was like way more in what historically would be considered a border czar. Like they had a lot of leeway and a lot of power specifically at the border to do things at the border. Whereas what Joe Biden, even in the transcript of what Tyler sent, again, like, sorry, remember, Portland said, yeah, it's mostly diplomatic stuff. And you're right, I did misspeak. It wasn't just the Northern Triangle. It also included places like Venezuela and Mexico and South America, but those were less of the focus since at the time, the Northern Triangle was having such a surge in immigration.
That's what, I don't know if Kamala Harris was involved in this stuff, but one thing Biden did do is he started, he resumed flights to, I think, Nicaragua and Venezuela to deport people to. Biden's transformed it to deport to Mexico, or as I'm saying, this is deport to Mexico. Yeah, he's resumed deportations to Venezuela and Cuba. Okay, not Nicaragua. I don't know if Kamala was involved in these negotiations, but like these are two things we did, or two things the Biden administration did, surrounding or with these other countries.
Yeah, so I guess.
I just want to cut to the quick of this, right? Like, regardless of what we call her, did she do a good job with the responsibility she was given? What do we think?
I don't think we really have enough information to make any kind of judgments as it relates to like what she did specifically. I don't think that there's a tremendous amount of information available about what they were able to accomplish behind those closed doors, nor do I think we should hold extremely lofty expectations for what can be done to stem such a difficult problem and a complex problem in such a short amount of time.
No, actually, I have some
there's
stats.
just a lot of jumping to the gun going on here in this conversation.
Let me just make sure I'm on the right article here. Let me see here. Blah, blah, blah. There is a lot of stuff in the Northern Triangle. Let's see what she actually got done. Get to the right paragraph. Sorry.
I'll say you some time. She got done jack shit. That's how she got done. She failed like unequivocally in every system.
Productive.
We could like sit here and do semantics over the border czar thing. Let's just cut the facts. Here's some quick facts. Fact one: Roberta Johnson was the border czar under Biden. She did have more roles allegedly, right? However, in the same speech, I posted the link on March 24th. He said, "I can think of nobody better to qualify to do this than the former," referring to Kamala Harris to take over for the job of Roberta Johnson. That is definitive proof that this is the person taking over this job. It's just like if I'm a CEO, I step down and someone else fills the CEO role. Guess what their title is now? It's a CEO. Now I get this is an unofficial title, but nonetheless, now if we want to talk, if she's
hold on. I'd just like to formally accept your concession on the first point, as this is a complete 180 from the conversation we had on Twitter no more than 4 days ago, where you steadfastly insisted that not only was she the borders, but that the media referring to her as the border czar was like your substantive proof of that claim. So
the substantive proof is Biden had her fill in the role.
You're like just like 100% wrong on the quote that you just referenced. He didn't say.
There's a whole thing.
Well, I'm looking at it right now, and I can think of nobody who is better qualified to do this than a former. Yeah, sorry, it's Biden, so it's going to be some stuttering here, okay? I can think of nobody who is better qualified to do this than a former. This is a woman who ran the second largest attorney general's office in America after the U.S. He didn't say there is no better person or qualified that is qualified to take over for.
This is the exact quote. It says, "I can think of nobody who's better qualified to do this than the former California attorney general." Biden said.
Yeah, but what you just said was to take over the responsibilities that this other person had. But that's not because the paragraph
literally says in the paragraph right before he's taking over for these responsibilities.
Yeah, specifically
the two paragraphs before that say what he's referring to.
Listen, y'all just trying to be weaselly. You're trying to get out.
It's okay. I hate how much of the conversation is always going to be devoted to. Was Kamala Harris as garbage as the border czar? I don't care. Please just talk about immigration policy. Because I think there's like, please have a substantive policy debate.
I don't understand how you're confused. Saying the Biden border czar said now, all right, before she did, Biden announced in a news conference that Harris would be responsible for addressing the Southwest border surge that had already begun within days of taking office. That is the first part of the paragraph before the quote. What about that?
Yeah, so I said the several paragraphs before that. And so this increase has been consequential, but the vice president has agreed, among multiple other things that I have relating, agreed to lead our diplomatic effort and work with those nations to... Hold on, let me finish the sentence. Let me finish the sentence. All right. Those nations to sorry, he stutters, so it has all these dashes. Work with these nations to accept returnees and enhance migration enforcement at their borders. And then he reinforces at their borders. She's not in charge of directly the southern border. She's in charge of going out.
Hold on, true. Wait, let me find that quote.
Those nations to sorry, he stutters, so
Biden, Kamala Harris, border, diplomatic.
it has all these dashes.
Literally
Work
the
with these
stutters
nations
difference.
to accept returnees and enhance migration enforcement at their
Which
borders.
it seems like, again, from the things I mentioned earlier, she probably did. This is my number. Okay, well, thank you, SRT Marcus. Great.
And then he reinforces at their borders. She's not in charge of directly the southern border. She's in charge of going after the root issues behind the push factors of migration.
Real quick,
This is just so dishonest.
hold on. Let me jump in here because when I hear Democrats say they want to address the root issues of crime, that's their way of fighting crime. So is your way of fighting immigration just addressing the root causes of immigration?
That's not the only thing that we should do. No.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, it's still the same thing. She was still in charge of the border and the immigration. She was just doing what
Democrats
Democrats
want.
do.
Hold on, no, because there's several different ways that you go about curbing
This is gonna
immigration.
put this back-
One of
this
them
is-
is going to
okay.
be diplomatic and working with those nations
Oh,
where all these
sure,
people are
I get
coming
it.
from. One is going to be actual.
Also, I'm not too sure about Kamala's foreign policy. I mean, I don't think she's ever like been involved in any position that has their. Jesus fucking Christ, that was dude, I sound like Biden after saying that. I don't think she's ever been in a position to really deal with any foreign policy stuff before. So, like, other than, I guess, the diplomatic relations on a border. I've seen people say that she's more pro-Palestine than other people.
Border control that you have
Yeah,
right
which
there.
he
And
says-
you're also going to
I'm
have
stuck in a loop of hell.
the asylum seeking process and the deportation
I
process.
get it.
There's multiple different things that we're looking at here.
But
And
the
she was in
fact that she
charge
was
of one
doing
of them.
it.
She was in
Hold
charge
on.
of one of those aspects. And
This
as you
is the
can
most
see,
dishonest
and
bullshit
you
I've
know
ever
it's not dishonest.
Let me-
because you
let
can
me read
see
you one more
all of
quote.
the
Hold on,
policies, all the policies
Please
that
stop.
went
All
at
of you
the
stop. All of you
border
stop.
from
All of you.
Biden.
Sansol,
I
all of
said
you,
that.
all of you. Okay. You can't. No one can hear you guys when you talk over each other. We do have to go one at a time. Sansol finished. Well, but he was talking over me,
1984.
right? But he
Sleep at
finished.
4
So
a.m.
now
Well, that's
give.
what
Now
I
you
do
can give
now.
your quote, but don't try to keep interrupting him to get.
Well, I mean, I got asked. First of all, I got asked a question by Portland here, and I didn't even get a chance to answer that because you tried to sit here and say I was backing up.
The floor is yours. Use it however
Yes,
you like.
I'm going to use it. So this is going to put both these things to bed. This is another direct quote from Biden. All right, when
Oh,
she speaks
direct quote.
for me. She doesn't have to check with me. She knows what she's doing. I hope she can move this along. Parentheses to address the increasing challenges at our southwest border. No one who knows this better than the vice president. That's a direct quote.
Yeah,
so he
you're ignoring the
directly.
entire rest of the context of that.
Oh, there's more. There's more. I can keep reading. He keeps giving out specifics that she's going on further in the speech. This is what the problem is, right? You're being dishonest. She's clearly been in charge by Biden to take over for Robertson or Jacobson. I mean,
That doesn't preclude that the way that she was doing that was through negotiations with other countries to address like the push factors that are causing people to migrate. When she speaks for me. Senators for presidents are not near death based. Work will not be easy. It's important. Harris is tasked with overseeing diplomatic effort. This like if he literally just read like the next paragraph, sounds like it's right. It like directly contradicts him. Like Harris tasked with overseeing diplomatic efforts to deal with issues spurring migration in the northern triangle countries of El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, as well as pressuring them to strengthen enforcement in their own borders. Yeah, this does not support him at all. That's his Goldstein.
and sit here, take over for her as the borders are. Now, y'all want to sit here and say, like, she didn't go down the border, she only visited once. Okay, that's right. She's a failure. She should have gone down more. She should have done more about the border. Oh, she tried to address the migration issue. She failed at that. The migrants are coming in droves. Texas had to sit here and fight the U.S. government and put up the fence and was successful stopping 85% immigration because guess what? The walls worked. It's amazing how that happened. And she gets over here. The only credit that y'all getting is because of Texas' success, despite the Biden-Harris administration trying to tear down those walls that have been proven to be 85% effective. So that's absolutely ridiculous that y'all are going to sit here and try to go, oh, well, she wasn't. Whenever Biden in his speech is saying she's in charge of the border, bro. Like, just come on.
True. Again, the wall doesn't really do anything because, oh my God, fuck you, Notion. Unless there's an asylum ban active, like there is now, then the laws on the books require that regardless of whether someone comes through a port of entry, they have to be granted asylum. The wall doesn't do anything because they could still just go up to border patrol at the wall and claim asylum. In violation of language of asylum law. Where's the actual? Where's the law? God damn it. Okay. The right to apply for asylum is irrespective of status and whether or not you arrived at a designated point of arrival. Any alien who is physically present in the United States or who arrives at the United States, regardless whether or not at a designated port of arrival, and including an alien who is brought to the United States after having been interdirected in international or United States waters, irrespective of such alien status, may apply for asylum in accordance with this section. Yeah, like, am I wrong? Is Mayor Koss not in charge of the border? Is he not the head chief? Is that the Department of Homeland Security guy? I mean, it looks like Kamala Harris was put in charge. Yeah, that's Homeland Security. I mean, the issue is, like, this is the person who's in charge of enforcing the law, right? But the law in this case, the law is the problem, right? Like, the law states that you have to be granted asylum irrespective of your status as a legal or illegal immigrant and whether or not you arrive at a designated port of entry. Like, that's the big issue here, which is why we try to get bipartisan legislation done. But then Trump shot that down. Where can Americans get asylum? Asking for millions of people who had enough of this shit. I mean, technically, I'm sure you could go to Canada and claim asylum. It has to be like a valid asylum claim. Like that, like even we do like the fear test or whatever, right? Which is supposed to screen for a valid asylum claim. Now, technically, it's not, well, not technically, it's probably not very good, which is, I think, why the bipartisan legislation included better screening to see if they were valid asylum claims. But technically, I'm sure you could go to the Canada border and try to claim asylum. They just probably would not accept it.
Can you find me like a single instance in that speech where Biden says that Kamala Harris is directly in charge of the border, the operations, the policies of like immigration?
Yes, in that speech, he directly said,
there's no one.
She's already been talking with Mexico. He says she's already working with Mexico and been in talks with them before March of 2021, meaning she's been delegating the border policy with Mexico to address the surge that was already here, as Biden said. I got that in my notes too.
How does that go against, hold on, really quick, how does that go against the line that I read just a minute ago where that I have her leading, and I appreciate it. She agreed to lead our diplomatic effort and work with nations to accept the returnees, enhance migration enforcement at their borders.
Which, by the way, again, happened.
How does that conflict? How does that change what I'm saying?
I don't think it does. I think those are two different responsibilities that she was in charge of.
No, you haven't shown the first responsibility that you're claiming. I'm showing in his speech the words that he is using to say that what her responsibilities were or what he's putting her in charge of, right?
Let's get on the same page here about what that means. Is speaking to Mexican officials about returnee policy and strengthening their borders, is that or is that not a diplomatic mission? Can the two above me please answer?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fully within her writ. And I would argue she did a pretty good job with the spike that she saw, even though the final results are still 5 times more than Trump's yearly average from all those same countries. But she's doing a good job with the spike she had to work with.
Gibbs, can you clarify for me whether or not you acknowledge that engaging with Mexican officials to discuss policies related to their side of the border is a diplomatic mission and not one where she has like indirect
involvement? What the hell is a Nonfon anyway? It's just it's a name I came up with when I was like 10 years old. When I played PewDiePie Tuber Simulator, and then I named my real YouTube channel after it.
I mean, I'm going to just quote the next part of the
No, answer the question.
I have to answer the question.
No, don't answer it with a rant. Answer it with a yes or no. Is it or is it not a diplomatic mission? Is it or is it not a diplomatic mission? It's a yes or no question.
Do you want me to answer the question?
I want you to answer yes or no to the yes or no question, not ramble for 5 minutes about Raytheon and your...
Listen, we can keep... we can get nothing done, or I can actually answer the question.
No, you can't answer the question. You're demonstrating
you want
to talk about.
I guess I can't. All right, so in the words of Joe Biden, you can chew bubblegum and walk. You know, you can do two things simultaneously. So yes, she was doing diplomatic missions, and secondly, she was also, and I quote Biden on this, and I quote, this is the quote that he says right here. It says, "Oh, while we are clear that people should come to the border, we also understand we will enforce the law."
What does the law say, buddy? I don't think he understands what the law says. I don't think he understands what like the law is on Biden's case in this side. Well, actually not, since he passed the asylum ban. But like the law requires that all these asylum claims be granted regardless of whether or not you arrive at a port of entry, regardless of whether it's a wall. I don't think he knows what the law says. And also not just domestic law, but international law too. Which technically I think it is the way our constitution. Okay, well, what I know is the way our Constitution works, or the way the Supreme Court ruled at least, is that any like treaty that the federal government agrees to, that the Senate agrees to, does supersede state law. So, it becomes federal law essentially. We have to adhere to it, and we're signed on and ratified to the 1967 UN Conventions on the Rights of Refugees, which also requires the same things that our own domestic law requires.
Because we can chew gum and walk at the same time. So she's clearly talking about going to diplomatic missions and enforcing the law here in the United States. It's both.
How can you possibly think that was an answer to my question? Do you have Tourette's? Did those words spill out randomly?
It was pretty simple English. I mean, if you can't follow along simple English, then I guess nobody understands.
Just from my understanding, Gibbs, can you read that quote one more time?
Yeah. So, okay, while we are clear that people should not come to the border now, we also understand we will enforce the law because we can chew gum and walk at the same time.
What does it have to do with Kamala Harris?
Literally
That's Biden referring to Kamala Harris as the border czar. Saying diplomatic mission, basically referencing that she's going to try to stop the migration and she needs to enforce the law here on the border. That is what he's talking about as a responsibility. If this is
the same speech?
It's an article in the same speech. It's all in his articles I posted. You just scroll through.
Hold on.
And look, here's the next sentence. I want to keep going. Here's the next sentence.
At
the same time, we must address the root cause that people to make the trek. That's part of it. Look, right. She's also looked forward to working with Congress to address root causes. Say the work will not be easy, but it's important work. So yeah, diplomatic missions and the law on the border.
Yeah, no, you're super right. She referenced Congress. She's talking about, and this seems to be a running theme across every single article that I've read, across every single like ideological bent that they might be on, that the Biden-Harris administration, in terms of policy, in terms of enforcement measures that we could take at the border, they want it to go through Congress because the executive branch doesn't seem like they're much in the business of trying to rule through executive fiat, right? So if we want a court, like going by the way that they've been running the administration thus far, if they want there to be new laws, new things to be enforced at the border, a new law would have to be passed through Congress. And you can shake your head at that, but that seems to be the running theme across every single quote from both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the head of the DHS and every single person that has made a statement on the fucking border from the administration. It seems like the administration wants any kind of policy to not be executive fiat, but to go through Congress, which they have attempted to do, but it seems like the Republicans aren't very interested in passing that legislation. But we can talk.
It's not by fiat. You're only offering two different options when the Department of Homeland Services, the DHS, has almost complete control over the border. They can set the border policy. The Biden administration bragged about completely gutting the Trump DHS so they could implement their own border policy. And Biden, a quote from him is, he wants people, asylum seekers, to surge the border. So in 2010, after the Obama administration opened up Asylum, the credible fear loophole was done by Obama in 2010. After that, Biden told people to surge the border. He got that surge and he started letting them in. Some months we have 80% of people that came to the border got in. And so like it was his intended policy. That's what he said during the primary.
Same border policy in the U.S. Not going to happen. It's like it's football for the two capitalist parties to play catch with. True. I don't think any party has a big enough margin to do like even a bipartisan border bill. Like it did address some issues, but it wasn't like a super big comprehensive reform or anything. I don't know. I don't know for anyone. I don't know if we're going to get it unless we get like a fucking super majority in Congress.
Is that he wants people to surge the border. We're a compassionate nation. This is what needs to be done. So this is what they wanted. As far as Harris, the only responsibility she doesn't get to pick the policy. Kamala Harris was for decriminalizing illegal immigration, just turning it into a civil infraction. So this wasn't her policy because we kept illegal immigration.
Decriminalizing illegal immigration. What does that mean? Does that mean sanctuary cities?
Illegal under the Biden administration. This was his. All she did was so this wasn't her policy because we kept illegal immigration illegal under the Biden administration. This was his. All she did was and I'd say she did a pretty solid job at it if we're just judging her. Everything else is on the Biden administration because Harris would be far to the left of him.
So do we agree then that a person in the role of the border czar would probably have at the very least like direct input and
or would have helped since they get passed? Oh yeah, it definitely would have helped. It just was not like super big comprehensive reform. Like it should be federally legal. It's aiding and abetting. Localist party coming in on the side of the federal government for sanctuary cities. Decentralizing aficionado localist party is siding with the federal government when it comes to sanctuary cities. What you're telling me that you believe that the federal government should force states to hand over data or like force states to screen people who are arrested for if they're an illegal immigrant and then be forced to hand that information over to the federal government. That's what you're coming on the side of the federal government there. What?
Like opportunity to help craft policy and legislation around the border, or are we just kind of getting away from that term completely? I already accepted Gibbs' concession, so it's fine if we are, but if we're moving past like whether or not she's the border czar.
Texas shouldn't be able to ship criminals to Illinois. That doesn't have to do with sanctuary cities, right? That sanctuary cities is just whether or not like a given state or given city turns over I don't know what to call it, immigration background to ICE, to the federal government.
Nope. Okay. Check one for.
Well, we can ask that question. We can ask the next question. I thought we were done with that. It's not like you just gave it up.
We've already, hold on. This is once again just ignoring that Biden said when she speaks, she speaks for me.
Oh my God, he's going to quote the same thing that sounds already addressed.
How many times do we have to fucking say
she obviously has control over the border, so she doesn't have to.
But you haven't pointed to a single quote in this that says that she has any kind of policy say or enforcement.
Because she's a
control.
failure. She wasn't put in charge of this. It did
That's not
nothing.
what a
How
czar
did she fail at something
traditionally
that she
does.
wasn't put in charge of, Admiral Gibbs?
She's the
She was
vice
absolutely
president.
put in charge. She was told to do something. She was said, "You speak for me." But
Yeah,
whatever
and what he
policy
says
in
is
place,
she's
and her
supposed to
policy
do
was having
what she
summer
says
grass.
she's supposed to do throughout the entire speech is that Kamala Harris is supposed to be leading the diplomatic push in Mexico, in the Northern
And
Triangle.
she failed. The migrants didn't stop coming, did they? They're still coming.
No, they
Just right here in the
like,
border.
in one of the countries that she went to and worked with to like build up industry to keep people from wanting to leave, the immigration from that country slashed in half. In terms of the places that she went to, the immigration has dropped substantially. And instead,
When she said,
for
"Do
other-
not come," they listened.
They listen. But the problem is that since 2021, the places where immigrants are coming from.
A city is a state. You should be even more in favor of it if it's a city. Holy shit, you should be. You're a localist, dude. Don't you want everything to be on the smallest level of government possible? You should be even more in favor of it then. What?
Have shifted from the Northern Triangle in Mexico and South America to places like Cuba and Jamaica and other places like that over there. I forget the third country. That's like
Venezuela is another one.
Venezuela, thank you.
Even China is contributing a decent amount of like border contacts.
Yeah,
at
but
this
that's
point.
like relatively recent. I don't know if we have a
think
state
that's
policy
almost beside
like
the point,
problem.
Steve.
Yeah, but in terms of like the massive
point
waves
is
of
that
immigration.
The point is that the issue is extremely complex and that there is a fluid situation at the border that is going to be like an ongoing issue for probably the next several presidencies. Whether you build a mega wall or not, you're still going to be engaging. You still have to engage with the asylum system in a pretty meaningful way to improve the infrastructure that we have to process asylum claims, hiring more judges, employing more attorneys to help adjudicate those cases. Like this is a long-term process and it's an evolving process that looks different every year.
The wall would not do very much.
And
Yes, thank you.
we
Yes,
are
it doesn't matter if you literally build the fucking Gaza border wall like people suggest. It wouldn't do anything to change the actual laws in the books around asylum. This is the big issue. Thank you.
Really eager to see results. I understand that, but policies take a long time to materialize, especially complex policies that involve multiple nations kind of governing through aid and improving conditions on the ground to
The choice of being a sanctuary city isn't democratically decided. I'm fairly certain it is. I don't know who. It's probably up to different people in different cities because I'm assuming all their systems work differently. It's probably either up to the sheriff or the mayor, right? Or like the district attorney, all of whom are elected. Sheriffs are elected. District attorneys are elected. The mayor is elected. I would assume this is a decision decided democratically. Like, that's why, like, left-wing, gay San Francisco, the city's council and mayor will usually declare itself a sanctuary city. Okay, so the city council is elected, the mayor is elected. And, like, that's why super liberal San Francisco is a sanctuary city. There's other cities that aren't sanctuary cities where they're more right-leaning, right? A mayor's decree isn't democracy. Okay.
alleviate the necessity for people to want to leave in the first place. And you're also always vulnerable to natural disasters, like producing more spikes in immigration and contacts at the border too, which obviously has been an ongoing issue as we continue to deal with the ramifications of climate change globally. So there's just not a specific policy that you can point to say, like, implement this X, Y, and Z, and within 2 or 3 years, we'll see a significant downtick in contacts at the border, as long as the asylum process remains in relatively the same state that it is, and it's pretty broken right now, just from a manpower standpoint.
Manpower standpoint and the process itself, like, definitely needs an overhaul. These are rules from, I think the last time that they did change was sometime in the 1990s, early 1990s. But like in terms of like seeking asylum, these rules are from the 50s and late 60s, respectively.
Yes.
Treaty with the UN. So like, yeah, we need an overhaul, and we have the leeway to define how someone applies for asylum in our country. But nobody wants to touch that issue because everyone agrees that we should have the ability to bring in asylum seekers, people that are genuinely scared, but we have loopholes that nobody seems to want to fix. When we do have ways to try and go about fixing those things, people will tank the bills. I mean, again,
Trump will tank the bill, yes.
Earlier this year that a Republican drafted,
What about the one of the Trump that had everything in that bill but more? Like, so there was $500 million for the judges instead of $300 million. Trump went out and the Democrats tanked that one. Why are we talking about that? What's the issue? What's going on there with that then? If y'all really want to change, y'all would have let the one that had the wall and everything y'all wanted in. Well, see, it's not though. Let me tell you why. We've had an 85% decrease.
Wait, what did he say?
That had the wall and everything y'all wanted in. Well, see, it's not though. Let me tell you why. We've had an 85% decrease in illegal immigration here in Texas where we built the wall, despite the Biden-Harris administration, which seems their only policy is to tear down.
Another thing you have to be careful about. So Title 42 gave us a lot of good data on this. Doing things like the asylum ban don't actually decrease illegal immigration that much. What it increases is the number of known gotaways. People who know that if they go up to Border Patrol and try to claim asylum, they'll just be turned away, so they try to evade Border Patrol. And since we have cameras almost along the entire border, you can see the number of known gotaways increase substantially because people would try to evade Border Patrol. And what that means is that they don't get screened for a criminal background. and they don't get an asylum court date, so they'll never be processed by the asylum system. And if they're a criminal, they're let into the country, or so, not let into the country, they break into the country. Yeah, so like looks like the data on this is not in favor of these types of like asylum bans. Like any harsher border policy is to an extent not just going to decrease the number of immigrants, but also going to increase the number of people who just come in illegally and evade border patrol entirely. Since Title 42 has ended, the got away rate has fallen dramatically to below 14%, the lowest level outside a couple months in 2019. Like you can see, during Title 42, we had a huge number of gotaways. Chicago isn't capable of electing anyone to the right of Obama based.
Texas walls when we put them up. So once we started Operation Lone Star, I've already posted links in chat in the Discord. They sit here. They've had an 85% decrease. I'm going to give you another example. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick.
How much was that decrease compared to like neighboring states?
Interview. We were having up to between 1,500 and 2,500 people a day come just through Shelby Park. Since they put the wall up and the Texas governors and the National Guard stopped the Border Patrol from coming in and tearing it down, they're averaging 3 a week. I don't know. Seems like they're working.
85.
I don't know. I'd also be pretty careful this argument again. So one, because of the known gotaways, and two, because if you're implying that Texas has the right to do this, does California then have the right to take down the border wall and let as many immigrants in as they want? Is that because that would be like the opposite side of it, right? If you're saying states have this right, I mean,
5% decrease. First off, I'm sorry to source me, but source me on that one.
It's in the chat.
It's in the chat.
I posted everything.
While you look at that, while you look at $5,
real quick, I just need to know: is it the
like Russian election level? Unbelievable. True. This guy's awesome.
Oh, okay, gotcha. You go ahead and read your thing.
$5 from Joe the Mig to say, per Pew, illegal entry of Mexicans was still 4 million in 2022. The last vetted data point, down only 300,000 since 2019. Thank you for the $5.
I can jump into some of those. So
please.
I have a Pew citation in there and a couple other ones that help kind of break down where the immigration is coming from and whatnot. It only goes to 2023. And the 2024 numbers for Biden's border have been looking better than the rest of his administration. That being said, Guatemala spiked to 40,000 people at most. I think it was a little more than that under the Trump administration. In 2021, it went to 420,000. So this is what Kamala Harris had to deal with as the czar. Now it sits at 200,000. So she definitely cut it down by almost 60%, but it's still like 5 times Trump's 4-year average. So it's definitely not fixed. It is better than she got. So you have to give her, in terms of did she do a good job on some of these countries, you have to give her that. I'd say Mexico is the one that spiked back down the least. And now we actually have, for the first time in like 20 years, we are no longer net negative migration from Mexico, I'm pretty sure. Trump's 4-year average for all of these nations, though, was like 5, 6, 7 times lower than Kamala.
Like how EU immigration policy works, don't they? How many people drown at that border every year? How many migrant? I don't know if that's exactly who we should be looking to. Migrant boat flips 300 dead or something. Remember this a few months ago? 150 dead, 300 migrants on a boat, 150 missing. I think I'm pretty sure Europe's border is actually more dangerous than ours because people try to cross the Mediterranean in makeshift rafts, and a lot of them will drown.
Kamala Harris's most successful year.
So
yeah, but throughout 2020, we had basically non-existent migrant flow because of COVID restrictions and the difficulty one.
Oh, you're talking about? I mean, I like the freedom of movement stuff. Yeah, I'm a free. I like free trade. Okay, I like the EU.
A group would have traversing the borders up to the United States. Like mobility was significantly decreased and obviously drug down the numbers quite a bit. Not to say that you could attribute the entirety of the statistical difference to COVID, but 2020 being such an exceptional year for a lot of really obvious reasons related to migratory ability, I think does skew those numbers quite a bit.
You're right. That's why I try to use the 4-year average.
Yeah,
so a question then for your side, Tyler. Given that you, at least, maybe not Gibbs, but you at least admit that what she seems to have been taxed with, she performed well. What can we expect going forward if Kamala is elected as president? Do you think that she will carry on these policies, and do you think she will do a good job at the border, whatever that means to you, when she's actually not just the border baron, but the president of the United States? Go ahead.
As a Bill Clinton Democrat, I want me a Bill Clinton border, and I don't think she's going to be as tough as I want her to be. And like old Joe Biden, like 90s Joe Biden, that's the type of border I like. Not as tough as Trump, but still pretty tough. That being said, I don't think she's going to live up to that. So we don't know. Kamala Harris hasn't done a press conference since she took the supposed nomination. She's only been asked a couple of questions, and I linked one as the YouTube video toward the bottom of the citation. She got asked about inflation. She completely fumbled it. It was a terrible answer.
When does the border wall funding end? Because I know Congress approved the Trump border wall, right? And they funded it. And I know Biden continued to build it because I think he kind of had to because it was approved by Congress. I don't know though. When does the border wall funding end? Do they? Because I know like the Trump tax cuts end in 2026 or whatever. Does this end at any time?
So we don't know her immigration stance. We know her 2020 stance, but her staff has recently come out and denounced her 2020 stance and said she's kind of going to ride with the Biden agenda on the border, which would be smarter in my opinion. But still, I don't think it's strong enough. I think we need either that Senate bill Sanzo was talking about or HR 2 from the House or something in between. Both of those bills would have addressed this asylum loophole with credible fear. And I would have been happy with either one, to be completely honest with you, as a moderate, but I can see why the GOP did not like instantiating catch and release into law and why they would have voted that Senate bill down. So.
Well, to be really clear, the reason they voted that Senate bill down is because they were told to. But we know and understand that most legislation, especially dealing with extremely complex topics, can leave something to be desired, and it's understandable that you would have criticisms of catch and release. One thing that I want to try and understand from both of you, hopefully, although I'm not sure we'll get very far, is like, what exactly is your big fear with the status quo? Because I hear a lot of people talking about their problems with illegal immigration as it relates to crime and inflation. I hear a lot of bad numbers tossed out. Like, give me the elevator pitch as to why we need to urgently discourage the number of people we're seeing rather than just expand our capacity to process them and take in the appropriate asylum seekers.
Gibbs, you want to go first on this one? Because mine's probably not partisan.
Okay, while you argue about that, $20 from Artemis Fowl to say what she was tasked with. She physically did nothing and was called out by CNN for not going down to the border for over a year after getting tasked. Border crossings are down, but illegal migrants are flown into the U.S. But go ahead. Thank you.
So you go ahead.
I think the flying in, there was it was less than 1 million. I think it was like 300,000 out of Cuba.
True, but I mean, they've already addressed this issue that like apparently she was in charge of diplomatic relations, right? And it seems like she did do decent with that. Like she got, I think Council said, I forget which country it was, immigrants from that country came down by half. And we also resumed flights to Venezuela, Cuba for deportations, and Mexico agreed to invest $1.5 billion. Although I don't think she was in charge of anything with Cuba, right? She was in charge of the relations with the Northern Triangle, wasn't it?
And that's a whole different, that's Biden's potentially illegal visa program that his DHS just made up out of whole cloth. Completely different subject. That's my beef with the Biden administration. That being said, my fear of the border is not that it's the asylee process we have doesn't vet people the same way that our legal immigration system does. I think we should open up how many people we take in per year instead of trying to open up the asylum system and just let people in unproperly vetted, throw them into cities like New York, Chicago that are being completely overrun. Homeless people are having problems. Places where the asylees don't even have places to stay in some circumstances. I saw an article about a city in Ohio. There was 10 people from Honduras to a hotel room. Things like just inhumane treatment like that because we're taking in too many too fast with a system that isn't meant to do that. If we opened up our broader actual immigration system, I personally advocate for how many migrants we should take in every year should directly correlate with how many open jobs we have in the market right now. Try to match skill sets a little bit, but you don't want to play an economy.
Gibbs,
what is the question?
What is your main concern with regard to the people coming to the southern border right now? What is the threat that they present to the domestic population of the United States and its greater welfare that you think needs to be urgently addressed?
Yeah, so I'll definitely dive into that. So like I know people know that I'm pretty staunch on I want the secure border. I actually want immigration overhaul as well. We need to overhaul it. If people want to come here to work, I love it. Good. The more of them. We need bodies, we need people to work. That's
What does he think people come here to do?
fine with me. I'm okay with that. I don't like the asylum process. That needs to be overhauled. All the immigration needs to be overhauled. I also want a secure border. The issues that I have when it comes to the first issue, the biggest one we're having currently now here in Texas, is the infrastructure. We don't have the infrastructure. It's causing a very massive strain on the population down here. We're having the homeless populations flying up, and it's a lot to do the immigrants coming in and taking over some of the bedding. And it's not because they're specifically taking over bedding and stuff when they leave some of these centers, but it's just they don't have any place to go. So they're all fighting for a certain amount or whatever. That's a big problem. Infrastructure is the number one problem down here. Number two, sex trafficking. That's a big reason I want the border wall up, and I want it to come through ports of entry because sex trafficking is such a massive issue down here. Just the other day, this is like a once-a-week thing.
If you want people to come from ports of entry and you want the border wall, that's going to have to be accompanied by, I think he said he wants to revamp it, but that's going to have to be accompanied by new legislation from Congress. The president or vice president can't just do that.
Stop at a semi, and there's full of women and children. They're being taken God knows where. It's a problem. We have all sorts of these kind of things. The coyotes are all evil. It's dangerous to cross. I feel like the reason why people cross is because it's dangerous, but it's worth the risk. If you have something that's so secure that it's not worth the risk, you're 99% going to die. Guess what? You're going to wait to do it the legal way, and then and I think that's going to be much safer for everybody because people are going to go through safe ports of entry. We're going to know who's coming. Also, we also have a lot of the drug problems. The fentanyl's real bad currently. We've always had drug.
What's funny is that conservatives will say things like that, but they'll criticize Biden so much for that. Is it CBD1? I think it's CBD1. CBD1, one app. Order? Yeah, CBP1. This is the reason the app exists. It's for people in Mexico to schedule asylum hearings. So he'll say oh, I want people to come from ports of entry. It'll be safer, and let's just manage it. This is the reason the app exists. Single portal, a variety of CBP services. Through a series of guided questions, the app directs each type of user to an appropriate services based on their needs. Yeah, I think it I forget where we read about this, but that's what that app does.
Problems down here in Texas, just being on the border with Mexico. Those are issues. The gang violence has been pretty much an issue down here along the border cities. The Zetas are in a war with, I think, Sinaloa right now, and so they're in a couple. And I think there's a third party that's acting up as well, and that's spilling over into places like El Paso and in Brownsville and Laredo, especially Laredo. Nuevo Laredo, I used to be able to go to when I was like 8, 9. Now it's a goddamn war zone. These are problems. Like these are all major issues. Now, like I said, I don't have an issue with people wanting to come here. Like I think we're nation immigrants. I think we need immigration overhaul reform. But like if we don't secure the border, it's just going to lead to more issues. And that's kind of where I'm at on that.
Well, you asked the question, Portland.
Yeah, and I'm digesting the answers. I didn't ask it for any particular lead into a retort. Okay. I'm just kind of wanting to get the lay of the land a little bit.
Sure. While you digest, $10 from Artemis Fowl. More Chinese spies, Iranian and ISIS terrorist affiliates, and Russians have been encountered at the border and released into the U.S. in the last 3 years than in the last 20 combined. What are
let me jump on real quick. I'll finish. It's just 1 second. I forgot to mention that there is a.
That's another thing. Again, screening that's another big reason why the screening process is important, and arguably doing the asylum bans doesn't actually decrease the immigration that much. It just decreases the amount of people who get screened, so that would in theory increase the number of Russian and Iranian spies and Chinese spies coming into the US or whatever.
Like other foreign nationals not from Latin America, but it's a pretty small increase. Like I wouldn't list that as a top 5 threat, but I guess it only takes a few to cause September 11th.
Okay, Sansel, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, like, when it comes to like the foreign nationals, like they reference Russia. Is it not inconceivable that those are people that are actually fleeing Russia because they don't want to be drafted into the Russian army so they don't have to go die in Ukraine?
That's true as well.
If you see a foreign national that's claiming asylum in the United States, you can probably guess based off of which country it is why they might be fleeing that country, right? I don't think it's inconceivable, especially since we know about Chinese immigrants coming over through the southern border and other countries like that. I think it's some Southeast Asian country like Cambodia.
Foreign nationals does beef up the number probably.
But it's also fair to assume the opposite. We know that Chinese government has direct ties to the cartel, right? We know that. It's like an unequivocal fact. They're using Chinese chemicals that make the fentanyl. We've had reports of them like operating with cartels and all sorts of stuff. I mean, I can find some quotes if you want me to, like and stuff. It's not a big deal. But like we know they're working together. They're in cahoots. So like this is a foreign adversarial power. It's also conceivable that among these refugees, that they could sneak some baddies in. I don't know why that's a revolutionary idea either. And the idea that
what would the game plan there be? They're going to sneak in illegal immigrants, and then what are they going to spy on? Are they hoping that this illegal immigrant somehow like climbs the ranks and becomes like a U.S. military general? Like what's the like? There's probably something I'm not thinking of that they could actually do. I'm not opposed to the idea that there are Chinese spies coming in from the illegal immigrant coming in as illegal immigrants. I actually don't know what they would do. I'm just asking that. Can we get some answers in your chat? What's it? What would the game plan be?
That we don't want these people to go through a legal port of entry and get vetted, and we're just okay with, hey, jumping out coyote, mijo, let's go. Like that's fine. Like that's a problem. Like that's a problem. Like we know.
My understanding is that even if you don't come through an official port of entry, if you encounter Border Patrol, I'm pretty sure you still get screened. They will set off spy balloons? Oh, they could do that, I guess, maybe.
Why would individuals with the backing of foreign governments use ports of it, like use the southern border as their like entry point of choice? Why? It seems like because people with the backing of foreign governments can do things like apply for visa, like
you gotta
true as well.
No.
It's funny that you mentioned that because you know who did apply for work visas and were here illegally because they overstayed them? The 9/11 hijackers, the people who were responsible for hijacking the planes and crashing them into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon in the first place.
That doesn't help your case. That makes it even more
E-Verify.
Yeah, like that doesn't help your case at all. We had a weak security system and it failed. Instead of what we got now is no security system. Like, good, yeah, you're right. They applied for visas. We didn't catch them. And so now we have a wide open stretch of land where you can just walk across. You don't even have to do that little bit of security. Like,
wait, hold on. It's the exact opposite. We used to have no security system like that because we weren't expecting to get planes flown into our buildings. Sure. Whereas right after that, everyone complains about the Patriot Act and all of these different, security bills that we passed. So we had less back then, and now we have more. And we
have specifically, to be clear.
And now we have massive holes in the board.
Because it's a separate issue.
No, it's not. It's not a separate issue. This guy's point was,
Islamic terrorism and immigration across the southern border are not separate issues.
Hold on. We have.
I just want you to say that. Immigration and Islamic terrorism are the exact same thing.
They're tied together, absolutely. We have examples of people, like we can find prayer blankets out there. We have people from Arab countries coming across the southern border illegally. I don't know why you can't think, if some people could sneak across using visas, why wouldn't they just also use, there's open patch of land with no wall and walk across.
And it seems like if we were
Can I
like
just jump
look
in here
back,
for a one-liner?
are you just like no common sense?
no, I'm just trying to think like of a single time, and maybe you might be a little bit older than me. You might be able to remember this. Has there been a second 9/11 in the United States since any of those bills passed? Since we had these massive surges at the border, have there been any terrorists that came over the southern border and killed everyone?
I mean, the point is
he's probably going to point to a few isolated terrorists that have come over to the southern border, but nothing nearly to the scale of 9/11. If I was an Islamic terrorist, it would be damn easy to get across. To be fair, maybe. But again, like this is why the screening process is important, and this is why this is one of the things that the bipartisan bill at least would have addressed is that is the screening process. Where's this? We would have hired like more border patrol agents. Would make U.S. CIS handle all asylum processing from the border. Also would allow the president to expel people if border crossings got too high. Where's the screening process? Also provides for the screening by asylum officers of immigrants who express a fear of torture or prosecution in the country to which they are being expelled, which should make the expulsion authority more difficult to use in Title 42. That's why it's so important, so you can control who flows to port entry, so you can process people. Like you're not okay. The problem is you understand. With our current law, it doesn't matter if there's a wall or not, because either way, right now it doesn't matter if you go through a port of entry. You're treated the same. You're treated the same irrespective of whether you come from a port of entry or just a counter border patrol at the border. Biden issue. It's not a Biden issue. It's a U.S. Code Section 8C whatever issue. 8 U.S. Code, Section 1158, Asylum. It's a this law. It's a 1980s law issue and the 1967 UN Convention on the Rights of Refugees issue. Seek asylum in Mexico. But you're not, again, I'm obviously not disagreeing that people should be seeking asylum in Mexico, and the reason that they're coming here is for the greater economic opportunity here. There are probably some people who are legitimately worried to go back to Mexico because of whatever cartel violence or whatever. But again, this is our not a Biden issue. Is all I'm saying. It's our current law issue. They come here because we have more stuff. Like you're not wrong. I will point out that I think it's good. That I think immigration is generally good. For the economy, at least. You can point to maybe some social issues, but like again, I'm just saying it's not really a big Biden issue. It's just our current law issue that we need to fix.
The point is, could it happen?
Could it happen? Yes, that's a really good question. And yet we've had so many people.
But you're just dismissing that out of hand.
I'm not dismissing it out of hand because it is something that we should worry about. And yet, when we have people that are on the terrorism watch list cross the border, we've had
92 people on the terrorism watch list. We caught by interactions trying to cross illegally.
Can I just throw something in here?
Yeah, they were caught. So it seems like we have some infections. But yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
How many more to get through?
Let me throw one thing in here that might link these two. So one of the things in HR2, a provision that HR2 tries to correct is if you're going to fly in here after applying from the Biden's Immigration Act, the HR2 would make it so you can no longer use an ICE wanted poster to prove your identification before you get on a plane headed to the United States. So I would say the two are kind of related.
Fair. But yeah.
There's many perfectly safe, prosperous places in Mexico to seek asylum and settle. They want a $15 minimum wage. I mean, I don't entirely disagree with you. I will say there definitely are people who feel unsafe in Mexico who have some credible fear because of the cartel violence in Mexico, even in the supposedly safe cities or whatever. But again, I mean, you're not like wrong. It's just that like if you come to the border and ask for asylum, current law basically says, well, you have to be granted it unless there's something like Title 42 or Biden's new asylum ban executive order that are in place, which is again unlawful. It's not like Biden can't do that. He doesn't have the authority to do that. It's illegal, but no one cares. No one cares. If you have general cartel ties that you're escaping, that's the only real bad situation.
Go ahead. Here's the thing. The border needs some addressing, and I think that at this point, even the Democrats are on board with that. You can talk about hypocrisy all you want. You can talk about how they could have done something in the past, but they haven't. But it seems like in response to what voters want, it seems like they are listening, and it seems like they are wanting to pass legislation that would be codified in law and actually fix some of the issues that we have down there. I mean, even Tyler agrees that the bill that was written by a Republican, had Republican sponsors, was approved by the Democrats, right? Because they had to give a ton of concessions away, but they felt like politically it was a non-starter that they could continue down the path path that we've been going with immigration. So they were willing to take a lot of right-wing, provisions into that bill as concessions because they needed to get it through, and yet it's still tanked. Why? Again, Mr. Trump, he's been cited by multiple lawmakers that are part of the Senate, like Mitch McConnell, said that it was because of Trump that it was tanked. It's not because they had specifically, oh no, well, this is actually like a nothing bill. It is a pretty stringent bill. Every single immigrants' rights organization thing that
so why did Tim shut down the better one, the one with the border security and all the things?
Because it was too much for them.
Because it was Trump. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. They were just saying,
maybe Trump is a little bit too extreme for maybe what the
but he gave everything in this bill, and he wanted security,
and then more, and he wanted to build a wall, and he was.
Why is that a bad thing when it's proved it works?
Because the border wall is a stupid meme.
It's 85% decrease.
It's obviously a fucking contentious issue. Obviously, you should be able to acknowledge that there's no way that a lot of Democrats would ever vote for a bill that extreme. I totally forgot about this rule. Right after Title 42 ended, Biden issued a new rule. This rule that basically almost reinstated Title 42. Non-citizens who cross the southwest land border or adjacent coastal borders without authorization after traveling through another country and without having 1. availed themselves of an existing lawful process, or 2. presented at a port of entry at pre-scheduled times using the CBP-1 app, or 3. been denied asylum in a third country through which they traveled to, are presumed ineligible for asylum unless they meet certain limited exceptions. I forgot about this rule. Right after Title 42 ended, Biden reinstated this rule. Yeah.
Why are we listening
in Texas? Why? Like you say, it's a meme. 85% decrease anywhere where there's been a wall put up in Texas.
That's not the thing that you just linked. Was saying was 85%.
Operation Lone Star saying 85% decrease.
Was Operation Lone Star just building the border wall?
Again, you'd have to look at the known gotaways, which presumably would also increase. Which I feel like I remember at the same time. If I look up Texas razor wire migrants drown, I feel like there was a. I feel like these 3 migrants drowned near Eagle Pass, Texas. Tragedy happened after state authorities blocked the U.S. Border Patrol from accessing 2.5 miles of the Mexico border. Yeah, this is a case of people were crossing the border regardless, and they drowned, but presumably other people would have crossed the border and still gotten away with it. Wall should be paid for with national defense spending. The approval of the wall comes with many issues: environmental, socioeconomic, etc. Yeah, well, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, the environment. There are a lot of issues that people with the environment, because if you're building a wall across nearly the entirety of the border, right? There's obviously animals that don't care about the border and will migrate across it. Yeah, and it's just most, again, I think most illegal immigrants still, or maybe not anymore, but during Trump's presidency at least, most illegal immigrants came here legally and then just overstayed their visa. I think it was 60%, so it would have only stopped 40% of immigrants, at the most. Yeah, and then it's a national security interest, true. And then it's what else were they going to say? People were already chopping holes through it. Not only do you have to build the wall, but you also have to have Border Patrol patrol the entire wall to see if anyone is cutting through it, which happened. People were cutting holes through the walls or building tunnels under it. And so it's expensive to build and expensive to maintain and expensive to have Border Patrol patrol the entire thing. Plus, you should probably just make it easier to legally immigrate because immigrants are pretty good on the margin. $800 every time I got repaid. Damn. Immigrants are probably good for the economy. I don't think there's any huge negative social effects from them, so I think the trade-off is probably worth it. You should probably just make it easier to legally immigrate, and then a lot less people will illegally immigrate.
It's trying to stop the U.S. government from taking it down, basically, yeah.
I think my browser is crashing, which kind of sucks because I can't open up the thing that I just read that you sent. But what I was reading there is that there was a whole bunch of different things that they were doing. Again, this was a big contingency.
Yeah, they sent the National Guard to enforce the border, to catch people and stop them from coming in and building walls and throwing up borders. That's what they did.
Border fences and a continuous wall that runs the entire length of the...
So if immigrants boost GDP enough, it's cool for you? Yes. What? I mean, it depends how big the downside are, but if immigrants have this massive upside, it's cool of you? Yes. What? Yes. I mean, I don't know what you think the downside is, but unless there's some major downside attached to that. Yes. This is how trade-offs work. Yes, true. Yes. What?
Well, major portions of it, like Shelby Park, for example.
Shelby Park is a major portion of.
It's a major portion because there's crossable areas, there's uncrossable areas, right? And they also have the buoys up, which just got ruled every Friday. That's part of the border wall. That's under Abbott. That's part of Operation Lone Star. These things are working. Like, they're working. There's Dan Patrick just gave an interview a couple months ago talking about it went from 2,500 a day, 1,500 to 2,500 a day to 3 a day. Like, this is crazy. Like, I don't know how you.
Fuck, I need to do more economic research today, but maybe we should read this too.
These things aren't working.
Fuck, I don't know why I'm trying to pull up the myriad of articles I have.
While you're trying to do that,
crashing.
$20 from Artemis Fowl to say the concessions mean nothing when POTUS is literally given the power to override the border lockdowns and maximums at his discretion. Walls don't work. Why are migration routes shifting to Southern California in response? Go ahead.
He's absolutely right. Border security does work. We know how to actually stop the flow of people coming in illegally. That being said, most of the people coming in illegally under the Biden administration are people coming in at non-ports of entry that are applying for asylum anyway. And all they're going to do is just shift to the ports of entry. Like, it's not going to stop the amount of people coming in as asylum seekers if we build a wall. We have to do something about the asylum system to actually change that problem. Now, it will stop the gotaway. We don't know how many gotaways come into the country any given year, but there's estimates.
That's
and under Trump, it was estimated about 600,000 a year came in.
We actually, in the past few years, we've gotten really good at knowing how many known gotaways got away because we have increased our border security, and that extends to adding cameras over the majority of the border. Or I'm pretty sure we have cameras almost the entirety of the border. So we by now we do have pretty good estimates of the number of known gotaways. But
on average, 4 years under Biden, I've seen estimates that it could be somewhere the same, or it could be somewhere 5 times higher. Trump would use the biggest number and say 22 million people are here between illegal visa programs, asylum abuse, and also the gotaways. But I don't think it's nearly that high. But we have no idea. So that's kind of why border security is important. Is the people that we're not vetting at all are the ones that could be terrorists or criminals or coyotes or smugglers, bringing children in and things like that. That's why. And it's not about like better or worse. I really feel like the left-wing argument of compassion over law and order is not a losing argument. You do want to enforce some laws, but how strict those laws are and who we let in is still a solid argument. I just think we need to tighten up the credible fear loophole a bit. Maybe not to what it was, but just tighten it a little bit.
Yeah, and see, like that's a reasonable conversation to have. But unfortunately, what we actually have is a bunch of people
saying
that
can't
instead
have
of
it.
doing anything that, people who study immigration, know how to curb immigration, know exactly what's wrong with our immigration system, things that we could do to improve our immigration system, how to tide the wave of immigrants coming in from the southern border. All that. Instead, we're going to put up a wall, which doesn't work. It doesn't seem to. It doesn't seem like
it's working though.
It would work to
oh dear God, he's going to say the exact thing again. Immigrants only benefits the employers, and the immigrants will having limited or negative benefits for the host country population. I don't think that's true at all. I don't think there's any good empirical evidence for that. The most you can say is that they depress wages for like high school dropouts or people with some other type of low education. That might change again on the margin if we start accepting way more immigrants than we already do. But like most of the data I've seen suggests that they have a very small negative effect on like high school dropouts wages or people without college degrees wages, and that's about it. Not all immigrants are low skilled, though. Yes, but the majority of them are. The majority of my understanding is the majority of immigrants coming to the U.S. are low skilled workers who work in mostly low skilled businesses. That's why all the studies show that they have negative effects on low skilled workers' wages, but they still they don't have any effect on high skill workers' wages. The majority of illegal ones are low skilled, not sure for illegal. I'm not sure either, but I would guess there's definitely a high percentage of high skilled workers that are legal immigrants, but I don't know the numbers there.
Stat that I'm not even sure if I necessarily agree. I
mean, if you're having like 1,500 to like 2,500,
but there's how much
hold on, just so I can be very clear from you, Sansel, and I'll ask you this directly: is your argument that the walls don't work?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a wall by itself is going to be anything that's going to stop anything going on at the border. Like, we would have to have the most technologically advanced, hardcore, constantly patrolled across our entire 1,000+ mile long border along the entire Rio Grande River. For what? Something that people could find a way around, for something that people could saw through, for something that people could dig under if it wasn't properly like staffed and maintained at all times. Like the idea that we would like sink all that money into something that like would still, guess what? You're never going to get rid of 100% of illegal immigration. That's just something that doesn't happen. You can say,
no, 100%.
I hate to be a debate bro here, but this is the reverse Nirvana fallacy. And if you follow this logic in terms of lawmaking, you would say, well, we can't ever stop murder, so let's just get rid of
no,
murder
what I'm
laws
saying is, no, like that would be like saying
that's a cello, not a
think on the
violin.
margin, dude. the margin.
Sorry, I don't understand the reference.
He's playing the world's smallest cello, and he doesn't understand. It's fine, though.
What I'm trying to say is, why would we go with this thing that, number one, we don't even know if it's actually going to work if we do like the 100% go full tilt into it, when we do know that there are all these different avenues that we can work with that wouldn't be a constant sink of money, constantly repairing parts of walls that were destroyed, constantly patrolling the entire stretch of our southern border. Like, why can't we like do something that is proven to work, that we know would probably work a lot better, change the way that the asylum system, because that's the biggest reason that people are coming over here, because they know that they can do the, damn it, you've referenced it like 5 times, Tyler, the credible fear loophole. They can come over here. I'm pretty sure that when that loophole came about, that was when we started seeing much more massive spikes in illegal immigration, right? So if we...
I don't even think that loophole exists anymore. I'm pretty sure after Title 42 ended, a few days later, Biden did his new rule, which I'm pretty sure... where is it in this? Bill also provides for the screening by asylum officers of immigrants who express a fear of torture prosecution. The higher reasonable fear standard for asylum seekers has already been effectively in place since Biden's asylum ban rule and led only to a modest reduction in the overall fear found rate. Furthermore, the border requires that border officers screen that asylum seekers have reasonable grounds for concluding that they could not have relocated to a different part of their home country at their fear screening stage. This is the bill. This isn't the rule, but the rule does. Okay. Fear-free border crossers are subject to fear screenings. The screening standard would not only lead to significantly more removals. The only way to increase removals is to increase screenings dramatically and then have the resources to expel people whose fear claims are rejected. It is already unlikely that the USCIS will hire and train nearly 4,400 new asylum officers, and in less than 3 years, even if it does, ICE will not have the detention and related resources to detain or remove them. When a high school immigrant comes, the primary benefits the immigrant and their employer, unless they create a new company or product. I just don't think that. Do you think if a native person has a child, right, and that child becomes a high skilled worker, do you think the primary benefit is just their employer and employee in themselves, or like? I don't think that's. I just don't think it's true. Like, they boost GDP, they pay taxes, they buy products. Like, they have their own income which they spend on other people's products, which supports their income. You could say the exact same thing for native children, right? You could say, why would we let college-educated people have children when their child is going to grow up to be a highly educated worker, and then the only people who are going to benefit is the employer? I just don't think that's true. And that, like,
we tried to actually fix those things, disincentivized through the means that we know how, without building one of the most expansive infrastructure projects of possibly human history, with the amount of tech and the amount of people that would have to be staffing it, and the height that it would have to be, and the materials it would have to be made of. Like, at that point, like, you might as well just create a Death Star.
Don't you like public works? There you go. Public works.
I like public works that actually serve a really good purpose.
Yeah, I mean, like stopping 85%.
It's a jobs program, bro. We should build a border wall just as a jobs program.
We could we could build like a 500-foot giant golden dildo in the middle of fucking Staten Island, but it's not giving anyone any benefits. So why the fuck would you?
Space.
Say I have a house, right? And I have a backyard. And I have these kids, punk kids, and they're always smoking weed in my backyard and not giving me none. Bastards. So what do I want to do? I want to stop them. So they're there every single day, every day. I build a fence. They're not there anymore. Would you say that it's likely that the fence had a significant impact on them not being there no more?
Do you think that your backyard? Do you think that your
backyard? Because I'm going to make it.
Do you think that your backyard is comparable to the border of the United States of America?
In this situation, it is. It's ethical. Would you agree in that situation, me building a fence and them not getting my backyard no more, is the fence is the direct component? Would you agree?
What was that last?
Me building a fence and them not being in my backyard no more every day. Would you agree that the fence is the determining factor in that one specific scenario?
In that one very specific scenario.
So, same thing, Shelby Park. They had 1,500 to 2,500 a day, built the fence. Next day.
It's so dumb because the evidence shows that in that case, yes, the evidence in your analogy shows that the wall there was responsible, whereas the evidence in real life kind of shows that the wall wasn't very effective.
Dropped.
And then what else did they? Okay, in that one area, the border, 1,000+ miles long. They had
How many can't cross in every one of those places? There's just rapids in the Rio Grande. Some there's too deep, or there's alligator. Like there's areas.
There's so many things that you're not taking into consideration because it's so stupid. I'm so sorry. Shut the fuck up.
You're the one not taking it. You're the one not taking it.
Like the teenagers that are smoking weed in your backyard are probably not as determined to smoke specifically in your backyard as the illegal migrants that are coming into the United States want to come over here for the specific purpose of either getting economic benefits or getting the fuck away from their like oppressive regimes. So the idea that teenagers smoking weed can like find another easy place to smoke weed compared to people that are running from like economic devastation or.
I wonder I had kind of dealt with any data. Shelby Park known gotaways. I don't know if there's any data for this, but I don't think there is any, but I don't think we have it for specifically Shelby Park. But again, I would venture to bet it probably didn't decrease illegal immigration that much. It probably just increased the number of known gotaways, and then the drownings did happen. So it's kind of evident. The drowning is evidence that people, at least some people, are going to try to cross the border, no matter if there is a wall or not, and it just incentivizes people to take more dangerous routes. Yeah, which leads to more people drowning. It also makes people more likely to like buy a fucking smuggling ticket from a cartel. Yeah.
Political devastation, like the idea that there's so many things wrong with the comparison. But if your mind is so small that you can only subtract things all the way down to the size of your backyard in order to make an analogy, sure, we can go ahead with that. A better analogy would be like, if there was like, let's say there's like for every.
Okay.
I mean, you're just spurring at this point.
All of you. Okay, this was fun. It was enjoyable. Let's get back to the conversation at hand, I think.
Does anybody else keep like letting their mind wander for a second and then looking back at Sansol and for just a second thinking he's eating a burrito? That keeps happening to me every couple of minutes. I kind of forget that he's got some kind of yellow cover over his mic. And I look back to him and I'm like, is that a burrito? Is this eating a burrito on the panel? It's so sorry. I just wanted to make sure.
$10 from Artemis Fowl, and then I have after this, I do have a question to get us back on topic, perhaps. $10 from Artemis Fowl. It's not comparable, Gibbs. You don't have an infinite amount of money and the largest surveillance apparatus in the world and military to guard your backyard fence. Thank you for the $10.
Well, welcome. For people that are new, if you're
real. Why did last minute show? They never got back on topic.